Sally names Audra co-CEO, Victoria pushes Billy. Today on Young and Restless, Jack throws a wrench in Billy's plans, Nikki vows vengeance against an adversary, and Victoria shares her plan of attack with Nate. Sally ditched Billy after talking with Adam and Nick reached for fentanyl after raging out. Nate finds Victoria furiously texting at the cafe in Chancellor Park. She explains she's transferring emails because she's out of work, that she's preparing a full-scale attack against Billy and Phyllis. They won't be calling the shots for long. Victoria can't believe what her partner has done. She won't try to sway the kiddies. His conduct will speak loud enough. She's planning to shoot the kiddies back to boarding academy to keep them out of the war. Nate worries that separating Billy from the kiddies could boomerang. Is this about guarding the kiddies or chastising their father? She claims this is just a precautionary measure. She admits that the kiddies are upset and not completely enthusiastic to leave for academy, but this is for their own good. Nate apologizes if he surpassed and admires how important she wants to cover her kiddies. She admits what he said makes sense and she may not be allowing easily. He asks what she plans to do to get her company back. She says her father is trying to force Kane to align with them, but she's planning her own attack on Phyllis. Billy enters the head office at Chancellor. Looking around, he says he's back where he belongs. Jack pops up, assuming he's enough pleased with himself. Billy wishes he's transferred a fruit handbasket rather than making a particular appearance. Billy brags about how satisfied he's to be in power. Jack is concerned. His family says he's a problem he can't fix. Jack wonders what cost achieving this dream will be. He asks if he's pushed Sally down. Is Chancellor worth losing the woman he loves? Billy admits he was lying to himself about what he wanted. He allowed. He could turn over a new splint but couldn't. His family worries that chasing after his prepossessions won't lead to a good place. Billy prodigies if he's just pissed that he's the bone. Who bested Victor? Nikki interrupts, unsurprised to find Billy flaunting. She's glad to see her stuff hasn't been dropped at the check yet. Nikki wanted some moments in her office alone. Billy starts talking about how he's going to change effects. The Newman hopes he won't run it into the ground. Jack asks his family to meet him at society for lunch and Billy wanders out, telling Nikki his family prefers her to him. He doesn't lament her hubby getting what he merited, but he's sorry for her. She knows he doesn't intend to hurt, but he does. She tells him to enjoy it while it lasts. Once he leaves, Jack tells her she can drop the stalwart face. Nikki appreciates his support. He knows his family is wrong. Nikki vows she won't be going anywhere. Billy will fail, indeed, if she has to take him down herself. Jack wishes he could help. She tells him to tell his family that the Newmans will get everything back. Audra joins Sally at society and starts to worry there has been another change to her employment status. Audra reads a PR statement and is shocked to see she's been named co-CEO. Sally has formally filled Jill in, who's furious with Billy. Jill trusts her judgment, so she's willing to give Audra a chance. Her friend thanks her. She owes her so important. Spectra says she only wants her to prove her right. She adds that Newman Media is being integrated into Abbott Dispatches. Audra asks how that happened. Her friend explains Billy gave it to her because he wanted to pacify her. She adds that she moved out this morning. Audra is so sorry they've split. Sally wanted to believe he wanted her further than the company, but that's not what happened. She tried to separate the particular and professional, but that was too hard. She got tired of fighting with him. Sally has to prioritize herself now. Audra is sure it was hard to walk down. They drink champagne as Sally addresses about how hard it was to be with Billy. She's sorry she left Audra hanging while she fought for her relationship. They toast to being single master ladies. They decide to brand the company. Sally wants to call it Spectra-Charles Media. Audra is in favor of it and so is Sally. She's sure there's nothing they can't do together. As they're about to leave, they run into Billy. That's awkward. Sally tells him he made a huge mistake letting Dally go. Billy says it was her decision to leave and he'd do anything to stop her. Sally says she chose him and he chose Chancellor. She and her friend exit. Outdoors, they run into Jack, who tells them how sorry he is. Jack goes outside and gets a phone call about the kiddies that has him confused. He gets off the line and tells his family that Victoria has gone too far. At Crimson Lights, Sharon catches Nick pocketing capsules and demands to know what they were. He claims he was just checking on his pain capsules and ran out. She urges him not to stress too important because it'll make the pain worse. Noah arrives as his mama starts going on about the soothing powers of lavender. They drink their son back. He explains he saw Sienna. She heard him out and asked her to come back to Genoa City with him. His mama is thrilled he wants to come back home. Noah explains Sienna is considering her options. He asks for an update on Mariah. Sharon addresses as Nick groans and twitches. Murmuring, Nick declares Phyllis will be sorry she ever went up against the Newmans. They prompt Nick to drink further tea because it can break anything. Noah wonders how he's still in so important pain. Nick claims it's fine and his son thinks he should be checked out again. He gives his son a clinch and tells him to give Sienna the time she needs. After he hobbles out, they worry about the pain he's in. He's been through a lot recently and all the pressure could be getting to him. Sharon prodigies if there's commodity going on that Nick doesn't want them to know. Nick goes to an alley and resists taking fentanyl but sees he has no more renewals for his pain meds. On a storm-charged autumn in The Young and the Restless, the fallout from Billy Abbott's hostile preemption gurgled across Genoa City like a shockwave no bone could overrun. The air inside Chancellor felt different, heavier, unpredictable. When Billy swaggered through the superintendent's suite declaring he was back where he belonged. But the bravado chimed concave, indeed to him. Jack Abbott's quiet disapprobation dallied in the hallways long after their battle, and Nikki Newman's oath of revenge hung over the company like a gathering thundercloud. What Billy didn't yet grasp was that every move he'd made to secure power had exploded commodity far more dangerous in his particular life. Sally Spectra, wounded and bent, had formally chosen herself over the man who claimed to love her but chose subjection rather. And in that choice, a new alliance was born, one that would hang the veritably conglomerate Billy believed he now controlled. At Society, the champagne still whizzed as Sally and Audra Charles sealed their bold new cooperation. Naming Audra co-CEO wasn't just a commercial initiative, it was a protestation of independence. Spectra-Charles Media would rise from the ashes of treason and boardroom faithlessness. Sally's voice quivered only formally as she admitted how deeply Billy's precedences had cut her, but by the time she finished, sword had replaced anguish. Audra, ever perceptive, honored the shift. This wasn't heartbreak presently, it was strategy. Integrating Newman Media into Abbott Dispatches might have been Billy's attempt to conciliate Sally, but it boomeranged spectacularly. Rather of gratefulness, it exposed the verity she had been an accessory to his ambition, not a mate in his life. When Billy crossed paths with them outside the eatery, despair flitted in his eyes. He promised he'd have done anything to stop her from leaving. Sally's reply was calm but ruinous. She had chosen him, and he'd chosen Chancellor. There was nothing left to negotiate. Away, Victoria Newman's fury coddled into calculated retribution. In Chancellor Park, she outlined to Nate Hastings a strategy as ruthless as any her father might concoct. She'd not maintain, and she'd not beg however. She'd give him one, regular and implacable, if Billy wanted a war. Her decision to shoot the children back to boarding academy shocked indeed Nate. Was it protection or discipline? Victoria claimed it was palladium, though the miserliness in her voice betrayed the emotional risk. Separating Billy from his children would wound him in a way no stock initiative ever could. Yet indeed as she justified the move, mistrustfulness dallied. Nate's concern wasn't lost. In trying to shield the children from chaos, she risked weaponizing them in a battle that was formally too particular. But Victoria was beyond vacillation. She had watched her family lose control of Chancellor, and she'd not stand idle while Billy rewrote the heritage her parents erected. Nikki, meanwhile, exfoliate any vision of restraint. Passing in Jack at Society, she admitted that Billy's triumph would be temporary however, she would, if she had to strike his conglomerate piece by piece. There was a familiar fire in her eyes, the same bone. That had carried her through decades of battles alongside Victor Newman. Though Victor's strategy involved using Kane Ashby into an uneasy alliance, Nikki was prepared to operate singly. She understood commodity Billy didn't power sees through chaos infrequently endures. And if he'd wounded her family, he'd soon learn how fiercely the Newmans avenge. But the most nipping development unfolded far from the boardroom, in the quiet corners of crimson lights and a shadowed alley hard Nick Newman's pain had come more than physical. The pressure of family warfare, Mariah's legal troubles, and his own undetermined rage toward Phyllis created a perfect storm. When Sharon noticed him pocketing capsules, concern etched her features. He dismissed it as nothing, just managing pain, but his pulsing hands told another story. Latterly, alone, he brazened a far more dangerous temptation. The lure of fentanyl rumored pledges of relief. For a moment, he defied. He goggled at the small packet as though it were a loaded armament. In numerous ways, it was. His tradition had run out, and despair blurred his judgment. The alley felt stifling, the weight of anticipation crushing him from all sides. Phyllis will be sorry, he murmured before, but revenge offered no comfort now. Only escape did. Nick's struggle marked a turning point. Genoa City had witnessed dependence before, but this was different. Nick had always been the steady son, the moral compass in a family defined by axes. Watching him teeter on the point transferred tumblers through the Newman clan. Sharon tasted commodity deeper was wrong. Noah bothered about the pain that would subside. Yet neither understood how close Nick stood to a decision that could shatter them all. However, the consequences would ripple far beyond his own life, if he succumbed. Victoria's war with Billy, Nikki's vendetta, Victor's strategic pushes all would blench in comparison to a Newman heir at law twisting out of control. Back at Spectra-Charles Media's recently nominated office space, Sally and Audra began outlining their first crusade, a bold rebrand designed to place them as originators rather than survivors. They planned to subsidize on Chancellor's insecurity, courting guests uneasy about Billy's changeable leadership. Audra suggested a digital expose series pressing commercial responsibility. Sally's eyes gleamed, however. She'd show him how queens operate, if Billy wanted to play kingmaker. Their chemistry was electric, two ambitious women no longer tethered to men who undervalued them. And in that community lay genuine trouble. Jill Abbott's conservative countersign gave them legality, and the assiduity buzzed with enterprise about whether this cooperation might outpace Indeed Abbott dispatches. Billy, still, refused to see the cracks forming beneath him. Alone in his office after the battle with Jack and Nikki, he poured a drink and goggled at the skyline. Palm should have tasted sweeter. Rather, silence echoed. Sally's absence eroded at him. Victoria's impending retribution impended. And Jack's warning, that achieving this dream might bring him everything, replayed in his mind. Billy had induced himself he could balance love and ambition, that he could conquer his impulses. But patterns are stubborn. The exhilaration of besting Victor had transcended every pledge he made to Sally. Now, the price was coming due. As night fell, Genoa City braced for escalation. Victoria drafted legal strategies designed to expose vulnerabilities in Billy's accession. Nikki reached out to older betters, reminding them that fidelity to the Newmans frequently proved more profitable than defiance. Victor, watching from a distance, considered his coming move with Cain. The chessboard was crowded, each player induced they held the advantage. And in a dim alley, Nick goggled at the line between relief and ruin. His phone buzzed, Sharon checking in, Victoria demanding updates, Nikki asking for a family meeting. He silenced it. For a twinkle, he imagined surrendering to oblivion, letting the pain dissolve. Also he allowed. Of his children. Of the heritage his father fought so hard to make. Of the chaos formerly gulfing his family. His hand quivered as he made a choice that would define the days ahead. When dawn breaks in Genoa City, nothing will be the same. Sally and Audra's conglomerate will begin its ascent. Victoria's counterpunch will enkindle a commercial war unlike any ahead. Nikki's revenge will edge into action. And Nick's private battle may explode into public extremity. In the world of the young and the restless, power is transitory, love is fragile, and every secret ultimately shells. The question isn't who'll win, it's who'll survive the fallout. In the days that followed, Genoa City palpitated with the kind of electric pressure that only a full-scale commercial war could enkindle on the young and the restless. What had begun as Billy Abbott's triumphant return to Chancellor was formally unraveling into commodity far messier, particular vendettas colliding with boardroom ambition, fractured families weaponizing fidelity, and private demons hanging to come public catastrophes. Billy arrived beforehand the coming morning, determined to project confidence. He stood at the head of the long glass conference table, reviewing protrusions and expansion outlines he'd slightly slept on. On paper, everything lusted cost reductions, streamlined media integration, aggressive accession targets. But beneath the face, insecurity churned. Crucial directors were reluctant. Longtime Chancellor workers pious to the Newmans were still circulating resumes. And whispers about Sally's new adventure were spreading faster than Billy anticipated. When his adjunct informed him that several advertisers were requesting explanation about the company's direction, Billy forced a smile. "Tell them invention is always uncomfortable," he said, masking the flicker of concern behind bravado. Across city, invention wasn't uncomfortable, it was exhilarating. Sally Spectra stood before a whiteboard filled with bold handwriting gamuts, Charles Media. Audra leaned against the office, reviewing a draft press release publicizing their first flagship action, a multimedia platform spotlighting ethical commercial leadership and womanish-driven enterprise. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. They were situating themselves as the cure to reckless ambition. "Billy won't see this coming," Audra said. Sally's expression hardened. "He no way really saw me." There was no bitterness in her voice now, just clarity. The heartache had formed into purpose. She had spent too long trying to be the understanding mate, the probative confidant, the woman who believed pledges about balance and change. This time, she'd be the mastermind of her own conglomerate. Meanwhile, Victoria Newman convened a discreet strategy session at a private suite in the Grand Phoenix. Nate Hastings sat across from her, reviewing a dossier collected overnight. It detailed implicit legal vulnerabilities in Billy's preemption, shareholder disgruntlement, and non-supervisory Argentine areas that could be exploited. "He's overextended," Victoria said coolly. "He moved too snappily. He assumed intimidation would silence dissent." Nate studied her precisely. "And the kiddies?" A shadow crossed her face. "They leave Friday." He jounced, though apprehension dallied. Transferring them back to boarding academy removed them from immediate chaos, but it also gestured escalation. Billy would feel the absence acutely. Victoria's phone buzzed. A communication from Nikki family meeting. Critical. At the Newman ranch, Nikki's countenance masked a storm. Victor sat at the head of the table, fritters steepled, eyes calculating. Nick's president remained empty. "He'll be then," Nikki claimed, however doubt crept into her tone. Victoria bare her findings about Chancellor's structural sins. Victor heeded without interruption, also offered a rare nod of blessing. "Billy thrives on chaos," Victor said. "So we remove his chaos. We insulate him." Nikki leaned forward. "And if insulation doesn't work?" Victor's aspect. Stoned. "Also we strike him." But their precisely constructed strategies were overshadowed by commodity far more fragile, Nick's silence. The night ahead, in that dim alley, Nick had made a choice. He hadn't used the fentanyl. Rather, he'd crushed the packet beneath his shoe, breath ragged as he forced himself to walk down. But defying formally didn't exclude the pining. The pain in his shoulder palpitated relentlessly, compounded by stress and wakefulness. The coming morning, Sharon set up him gaping blankly at a half-finished mug of coffee at Crimson Lights. "You didn't sleep," she observed gently. "I'm fine." "You're not." He bristled. "Drop it, Sharon." But she didn't. She had seen dependence before, felt its desolation ripple through lives. And commodity in Nick's guarded address scarified her. Noah's concern added weight. When Nick suddenly left, citing a meeting, Sharon changed a look with her son. "There's more going on," she rumored. Back at Chancellor, Billy entered news that hit harder than any Newman initiative. 3 major advertisers had inked primary contracts with Spectra-Charles Media. He read the memo doubly. "Sally," he murmured. Jack entered moments latterly, expression undecipherable. "I advised you." Billy slammed the brochure onto the office. "She's retaliating." Jack's voice was steady. "She's surviving." The words soaked. Billy flattered himself on adaptability, but he hadn't anticipated getting the antagonist in Sally's narrative. He'd assumed love would anchor her fidelity. Rather, his ambition had disassociated it. That autumn, a board member requested a vote of confidence. Victoria's counterattack had begun. Through interposers, She circulated enterprises about fiscal translucency and integration pitfalls. Shareholders uneasy about insecurity demanded answers. Billy set up himself contending calls rather of issuing commands. At Spectra-Charles, instigation accelerated. Audra secured a high-profile tech customer disabused with Chancellor's shifting precedences. Sally perfected a brand crusade emphasizing integrity, invention, and independence. During a celebratory toast, Audra studied Sally courteously. "You're not just erecting a company," she said. "You're erecting a heritage." Sally's eyes glistered. "I won't ever lose myself again." Away, Nikki brazened Nick at the estate. "You've been avoiding us."